and welcome to week 10 of my Beachcombing Blanket crochet along. I'm Eleonora, the designer behind Coastal Crochet, and all the details about this blanket can be found over on my blog. The links are in the description below. So in week 10 we're going to be doing the final rows for the top and bottom panels of our blanket, and it's these rows here, row 17 all the way through to row 27. And these rows are inspired by sand and driftwood and sea glass and shells, so lots of beachcombing inspiration. Remember to have the written pattern next to you as we go through the tutorials, and also remember that I use UK crochet terminology, although I do try to translate to US as we go along. So this tutorial is for the shell rows, rows 22, 23 and 24. And at the end of row 21 you should have joined with yarn J at the end of the final stitch, ready to start this next row. And row 22 is a row of ordinary half treble stitches. So if you look at the pattern, it starts by making 2 chain, and that counts as the first stitch of this row. So because that 2 chain counts as a stitch, this first stitch here is now counted for, and the next stitch to go into is the next one along. And as the pattern says, it's 1 half treble in the next stitch and each stitch to the end. So half treble stitches are US half double crochet, and when you get to the big stitch, so this is the stitch where we did the raised stitches together in the previous row, that stitch will look a little bit gappy and a little bit big, but that just counts as 1 stitch there, because remember we were making those 2 stitches into 1 on the previous row. So that stitch will look bigger on this row, but it's just the one. So carry on, 1 half treble, US half double crochet in each stitch to the end. Nearly at the end of the row, 1 half treble, US half double crochet in each stitch along, and then at the end of the row it tells us to join with yarn C at the end of the final stitch. So at this stage here you get yarn C, which for me is the cream white coloured yarn, and finish that final stitch by joining with yarn C, and then we turn the work, ready to move on to row 23. And row 23 is a row of shell stitches, and these shells are going to be made in exactly the same way as the shells in our side panel, the side panels that we did in weeks 6 and 7. So looking at the pattern, it tells us to make 1 chain. This doesn't count as a stitch, so then we make 1 double crochet, US single crochet in the first stitch, so in the first stitch of the row, because that 1 chain doesn't count as a stitch, and the next stitch. So 1 double crochet, US single crochet in the first stitch and the next stitch. And then looking at the pattern, it tells us to miss 3 stitches and then do 7 double treble, that's US treble stitches in the next stitch. So double treble, US treble, where you wrap your yarn around the hook twice, miss 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and then it's 7 double treble all into the next stitch. So that's 1, that's 2, and that's 7. So we've done 7 double treble US treble stitches all into the next stitch. And then looking at the pattern now, you've got some work in brackets, so everything in the brackets we're going to be doing 22 times, and it starts by making 1 chain, so make 1 chain, and then it's miss 7 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, so miss 7 stitches, and then it's 7 double treble US treble in the next stitch, just like we have done already. So miss 7 stitches and then 7 double treble US treble in the next stitch. That's 6, and that's 7. And so here you can see we've made the second shell, and everything in the brackets we've done once, the 1 chain, miss 7 stitches, and then 7 double treble US treble in the next stitch. And so we go back to the beginning of the brackets and repeat that again. We're going to be repeating that 22 times in total. So make 1 chain, then wrap your yarn around the hook twice to get ready for the double treble US treble stitch. And now we miss 7 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and in the next stitch we do our 7 double treble US treble stitches, and we repeat this all the way along to the end of the row. So I'm just on my very final repeat, on my final shell of the row, and then looking at the pattern, once you've repeated everything in the brackets 22 times, then tells us to miss 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and do 1 double crochet, US single crochet in the next 2 stitches, the final 2 stitches off the side. And obviously because this row below, the previous row was a row of half treble, it's a little bit less clear. So here are the 3 stitches we're missing, 1, 2, 3. Here is the first of the last 2 stitches. So just in there, 1 double crochet, US single crochet, and then remember that the very final stitch to crochet into is the top of this 2 chain that we made at the beginning of the previous row, and that counted as a stitch. That counted as our first half treble of that row, and so remember we need to crochet into it now as the final stitch of the row. And also at this point we now join with yarn J. So join with yarn J at the last stage of this final stitch of row 23. And now we're ready to turn the work to move on to row 24. And just to check, we should have 23 of these shells going all the way across the work at this point. And so here I am at the beginning of row 24, and we're going to be going around these shell stitches and anchoring them into place. So we start with making 1 chain, which doesn't count as a stitch. So the first stitch we're going to crochet into is that very first one you can see there. And looking at the pattern, it's 1 double crochet, US single crochet in the first stitch and the next stitch. There we go. And now looking at the pattern, it's 1 double crochet, US single crochet in each of the next 7 stitches around the shell. So we're simply going to be doing 1 double crochet, US single crochet in each of the next 7 stitches going all the way around the shell. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the 7th stitch is just that one that protrudes to the left of the shell, so it's a good way to recognize and remember that you've got that final correct stitch, that 7th stitch. And so there you can see we've gone all the way around the shell. And now it's 1 double crochet, US single crochet in the central stitch of the missed 7 half treble stitches from row 22. So in row 22, these blue ones, we did the half treble stitches, and it's the central stitch of these 7 that we now want to crochet a double crochet, US single crochet into. And there's 7 stitches, so it's the 4th stitch along, which is the central one. We can count into that, so there's 1, 2, 3, you can count back from this way, 1, 2, 3, and that stitch there is the central one. So just work a double crochet, US single crochet into that stitch as normal, and it just anchors down that shell and encases it like so. And so looking at the pattern, we repeat from start 21 times. So go back to where the star is, and that's where it tells us to do 1 double crochet in each of the next 7 stitches around the shell. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. Remember, is that little stitch protruding out to the left, and then it's 1 double crochet, US single crochet in the central stitch of the missed 7 half treble stitches from row 22. So 1, 2, 3, there's the center, 1, 2, 3, that stitch there is the central one, and just work a double crochet, US single crochet as normal. And as you can see now, we've encased 2 of these shells. So repeat from star 21 times, go back to where the star is, and repeat exactly what we've just done all the way across 21 times. And when you've repeated that 21 times, you'll be at this point with 1 more shell to go, and looking at the pattern, it's now 1 double crochet, US single crochet in each of the next 7 stitches around the final shell. So it's that 1 more shell to go around. And then when you've gone around the shell, each of the 7 stitches, it's 1 double crochet, US single crochet in each of the final 2 stitches. So there's 1, and here's the final stitch. But at this stitch, at this final stage of this final stitch, we're going to be joining with yarn A. So join with yarn A at the end of row 24. And that's it. These are our shell rows completed. I'll turn the work so you can see what it looks like from the front. Here they are. Here you can see the shells at the front of the work going all the way across. So that's rows 22, 23 and 24. The final 3 rows of our top and bottom panels are in the next tutorial to accompany week 10. And I hope you found this tutorial helpful. Thanks for watching.